Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the interview. Thank you for talking
Hey,
with
aloha. It's good to be here. Thank you.
me. I feel very honored and privileged. How are you doing over there in your part of the woods?
Pretty good. So I used to live in Hawaii. I was on Maui for about 9 years. That's where my father's from, and all my family's from on my father's side. And so now I'm in northern Michigan, and so we're just getting the colors turning. The trees are turning color, and it's just starting to get a little chilly here. So we're coming into fall. It's nice.
Uh,
Hopefully, hopefully we get out of 2020 pretty quick and on to
right.
better things,
Yeah.
better times. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, for people that don't know, Tony Rodrigues, yes, Tony
hmm
Rodrigues is a secret space program experiencer. So today he's gonna explain what that is briefly, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about that and some solutions as well. So for people that don't know, Tony, what is the secret space program, and what is your part in it?
Wow, that's a mouthful, and that's not an easy answer. So, the secret space program is the fact that countries on Earth have been going into space for over 100 years and have had actually, interstellar space travel technology for over 100 years. They've been trading technologies with other extraterrestrials, which isn't as mysterious as it might sound. They've just been straight up swaps for technology, and they have life extension technology and forms of time travel technology that are going to come to the forefront, that are going to be disclosed hopefully in the near future.
Mhm.
But what they've done is they've been able to take people for a workforce for labor, and a lot of your standard abduction scenarios result in these things where they take somebody and they go for 20-year increments, sometimes longer, depending on genetics, and they live a life and have a career off world, on the Earth sometimes, and off the Earth. And there are colonies built throughout our solar system and in the nearby stars that are owned by governments. And there are several fleets that are Earth originated on Earth that are in space now.
Right. So what would you say your role in all of that had been has been?
I was taken as a young boy. I went to school with somebody whose father was high up in the programs, and we didn't get along, so it was like a punishment issue, and they took me, and I did basically hard labor. I was taken as a slave, and because I was kind of off the books, I spent the first 6 or 7 years on the Earth, and I was in black programs on the Earth out of my 20-year tour. And then I was sold off to the Mars colony, and then sold off to the Ceres colony, which is what I have behind me as the picture of Ceres. And I did the rest of my time there, my tour there, working on Ceres colony on interstellar ships. Basically, I worked on a UFO for 10 years and put back, and not only put back into place, but they can take you and take you for that sort of time. They have radically advanced technology that could put you back in your old body and put you back in bed only 15 or 20 minutes after you were originally taken, with your memories erased, with memories blank, so that you wake up and know something, you feel a little different, something happened, and you move on with you go on with your life. But they have a great access to a huge workforce by being able to do that.
And do you feel that there's millions of people that they have done this to?
Yes, well, I don't know about millions, but probably.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know the actual number.
and and what's tragic to me is that most of these people don't even know about it, right?
Something less than 3% remember, have any kind of memory at all. Yep. The memory blanking process is very
Efficient.
adequate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Security protocol. Yeah. Yeah, you would definitely need some type of way to cover your butt if you're doing this to thousands or potentially millions of people, and you want to keep it secret. You definitely have to use some type of memory manipulation for sure. So I know that you've done many other interviews, and like I said, that was basically a good brief explanation of what has happened and what's going on and who you are. So I kind of wanted to get into a little bit more kind of psychological, philosophical, problem solving, emotional aspect of these issues. So what I
Sure.
wanted to ask you is, how did you wake up and have you always been awake?
Yes, well, after it happened, like the first, so the memory blanking obviously on me didn't work, didn't take forever, but it did. Most of it worked, and I didn't have any memory of what happened. But the very first night that I was taken, the first, half hour of that whole incident, I'd never forgotten. So I knew something was wrong with what we were being told. Well, I knew there was something more to the world, that I knew there were extraterrestrials. I knew that there was something going on, that we were, I went and looked in the Bible. I read everything I could get my hands on, the Buddhist stuff. I read the Quran. I read the Torah, the Bible. I said there had to be some mention of it somewhere. Somewhere there has to be information, and
Logically.
never could find anything. So what I did was I would study ufology, and it would not make sense. I go, nope, that's not it. And then it would be a few years, I'd go back and poke my head into ufology and study it again. And there was a bunch of coincidences that happened. But I was on Maui. It was 2015, and I saw I had an MRI, but then I had also saw Randy Kramer's account, and he explained in detail how the time travel aspect, that they put you back, and you can be gone for decades and be put back. And I went, because the timing never made sense to me. I was just gone. So I thought, I had memories of a career and what I did up there and all the time involved. But it didn't make any sense. I thought, when could that happen? It felt like maybe it was a past life or something, but it definitely wasn't a past life. And once I accepted the fact that the time happened, I went, that's what they did. And all the memories once I embraced that, then all the memories came back. And well, not all of them, but you know what I'm saying? Like huge amounts of the memories came. That's when I had access, and they really started to make sense.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. Did you say you had your MRI on Maui?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was about 2 weeks before so the reason I mentioned the MRI, and a lot of people say, well, it was the MRI that did it. And I don't feel like it may have had something to do with it, but I didn't think at the time. It was about 2 weeks later, and I saw the Kramer interviews, and that's really what brought the memories back. I mean, that really was when I thought, oh my God, I was gone all that time. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But later on, so there are other people that did, like the Mars records is a body of work of somebody. There were two guys, and one of them got an MRI, and he
Mm-hmm.
got his memories back of having a career on Mars, of
Mm-hmm.
serving a tour on Mars. And so I went, wow, that was kind of the same time I had one too. And I looked back, and I had my medical records, and I have the first emails from when I messaged people the next day. When I woke up the next day, I started messaging people, like asking, like, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the dates on those, and it was about 2 weeks apart. So I always mention that in case it's coincidence, but if not, then you know what I mean? Like, it's good for someone to know, because there's a lot of people that feel like I did before I got all my memories back,
I
like
definitely
very
think that's
curious.
important to note, and I think it makes sense. I've actually also heard other people say that, similar things, that they had an MRI, and that I've heard other people say that there's like chips and implants, that the MRI actually interfered with the inhibitor, whatever implants or chips that they had in them, and it was able to let them have access to lots of memories that were compartmentalized. So I've actually heard that before. So it makes total sense to me, especially the technology aspect of it, because an MRI machine is basically electromagnetic. It's a
Right.
machine, right? And so there's lots of potential there for interfering with memories in your brain and thoughts.
Yeah,
And
and that seems like something that they could do too, is put some kind of implant that would inhibit you remembering things. Well, also, it's important to note that since about 2012, and especially later on 2014, that a lot of the landscape of ufology has changed. We had it's kind of like, you can see that. I mean, if you're paying attention to events, you can see that there's been a kind of a war going on behind the scenes. Not really a real war, but you can see that very powerful interests have been competing with each other.
mm-hmm,
If you just watch you know what I mean, the bullet points of what's been going on for the last 5 years,
mm-hmm.
you can see the world isn't the place it was 10 years ago. Like, there's a lot going on. So
And it
I
seems like
think that there were underground bases. My theory is that there were underground bases that were destroyed, that had local technology that also aided in memory suppression.
I feel like that's most likely true. And I feel like there's lots of methods that they're using, you know, contingencies and redundancies. And I know that you're not supposed to put metal in an MRI machine. So if you had metal in your body and it was some type of a chip or an implant, it would make sense. It would fritz it out. But yeah, I think that's definitely important. So my next question is, um, what do you think would happen if everyone who were in these programs got total recall?
Hmm. I don't, I never thought of it. And I don't think that, I don't know, because there's a lot that goes on. Like I said, we talked earlier that nobody in one program knows what goes on in all the programs. There's so many different, they're so compartmentalized that, for me to speculate what could happen, I don't know. Things that you could not imagine would happen. And a lot of people are very frankly abused. I wanted to say that once you have the ability to take somebody and delete their memory, put them back, the morality of that situation is very questionable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a
Mm-hmm.
very slippery slope. And unfortunately, my account, and I'm writing a book about it, and people I've talked to, most people that I've been through it were very heavily abused. And their battle cry, and I remember when I was up there and times when bad things were happening to me, I got the same response. You're not going to remember it anyway. Just shut up. You're not going to remember it anyway. That's how they justify treating people badly. And so I think that's one of the things that motivated me on that end to want to remember.
Yeah, definitely. I often think about that myself. I would think, what would it take for everyone to get total recall, and how would that affect things if that would if because to me, I just imagine myself as somebody running all of these programs, and if you're taking precautions to cover it up, you might also try to create a scenario of, well, what if it goes wrong, or what if we can't cover it up? What would we do, or what would happen? Just like strategically, you'd want to take that into accountability. So I wonder, um, what would it take? And I think about that sometimes. I wonder if if the Earth suddenly like had, like, for example, like a solar flare, or lost all of its electronics, if that would do anything to everybody kind of snap out
People
of
started to snap out of it. Yeah.
it.
I don't know. I don't know the basis of what kind of active tech is going on, but that's a great question. That's a great thing to think about. But I mean, realistically, it's going to be a generational thing. Like they're going to have to disclose. They're going to give us breadcrumbs.
Hmm.
They are disclosing. They already did disclose. They said that the Pentagon's been chasing UFOs. They've come out with video. Nobody cared.
Yeah,
They are disclosing. They're slowly disclosing. We're going to the moon again
yeah,
in 2024, right? So
officially, yeah.
yeah, so hopefully.
Yeah,
But I think that there's a plan for disclosure, which was what they originally were going to do back in in the 70s with the moon shot. I think they were going to try to find something up there and say, look, there's ETs, and then they could say, now they can contact us and they can make up their own brand new set of lies for what's going on. But once they kind of let that genie out of the bottle, they're never putting it back in.
right, right, yeah, and they want to make sure that they do everything
But I
so
think
that
it'll go generationally, like they want to have it happen slowly so that the people that were abused can go away, and then the new people in the program, they treat them better and better, and then they keep their memories.
a very
I'll just
controlled situation. Yeah,
Yeah, they
I
want to
feel like that's
control it
probably
so
the
that
safest. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
because the abuse has been rampant.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't be tempted to do something wrong if I had that technology too.
right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just a guy. I'm just a man. I'm not
Right.
perfect.
Yeah,
And so the abuse has been real there. So they're going to have to get rid of that on they got to clean up their end first before there's a total.
I
Um,
hope they do. And so my next question is, when we say them and they, there's a lot of people are thinking, who are you talking about? Who's them? Who's they? Who are the people that are taking people and compartmentalizing their memories? And um, who is they that are doing this slow leak, that's doing this generational leak? So in your opinion, who is they? Who's at the top of this?
so there is an organization called the Cabal, which is a ancient religion. They're Satanist, elite Satanists that control much of the world's assets, and they're a league of corporations that extend into space, and each colony has been incorporated. But that doesn't put it all in one nutshell. There are I think the original what I heard years ago was there were 5 fleets, 5 different space programs that are fleets in space from the Earth. The U.S. military has one. There's an international one, like a United Nations one. There's a Chinese one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Japanese one, and there's the Cabal.
Mm-hmm.
And they all do business with each other after they get to a certain level of technology. They do business and they compete with each other. The colonies in the solar system are highly competitive with each other to be more advanced technologically than the other colonies, just like corporations are today, just like you think about Ford and Chevy.
Just exactly what's going on Earth.
Yeah, so it's just a microcosm. Those are who's controlling the Earth. The Earth is a Earth corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's divided like that. So the governments are really not as powerful as we have been led to believe. That the corporations are really have a great deal of control over our everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an illusion of choice.
Right.
You know, they provide you like what was his name? George Carlin. He said, you know, you go there, you got 30 bagels and 10 coffees from one company for the illusion of choice.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what you pick, that's what you're going to be stuck with. You're going to get what that is.
Well,
and that's kind of what the government is.
Yeah, the only way to keep a slave is to tell him he's free, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So now people in these programs, like you said, abuse is so widespread and it's out of control, you know, because to me, if you're taking children and you're basically kidnapping people and abusing them and then throwing them into traumatic situations, cloning them, doing things to them against their will, and then putting them back on Earth, and like kind of like when a soldier comes back from service and they're homeless or they become veterans in the gutter holding up a cardboard sign, you know, there's no help for them, and I feel like that's a real tragedy. And I feel like just like in the normal military, there's lots of PTSD that comes back from these programs and these people and this service that manifests itself in addictions, because you know, addictions come from trauma. So when you go through these traumas, most likely you're going to come back with some type of an addiction, whether it be alcoholism or drug abuse. And I noticed that a lot of veterans suffer from this and sometimes even have domestic problems or anger problems. And I was really impressed by you because you're able to speak about these things in a very professional and well-spoken manner. And I know that you've gone through lots of trials to be able to do that, because it's definitely not an easy thing to do. So I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, do you personally see a connection to like MK Ultra programs and heroin and drug addictions? How do you perceive this connection?
Well, the connection was that a lot of the MK Ultra programs trained people to be drug runners, to actually traffic the product into the country.
Right.
Those are MK Ultra people. You know, I believe, and it's my theory, I can't back it up with any kind of proof for you, but I believe that that's where all the school shooters came from too. They were being programmed. There is definitely, I mean, anybody that's been through a program like that, there is definitely a real self-worth problem. And you know, life doesn't make sense. And so when you say that I talk about what I went through professionally, you got to think that, excuse me, I need something to drink. But it was a long time ago for me. I was 10, and then I went for 20 years and then went back to being 10, and now I'm 48. So it was 38 years ago. So I've had a long time to process it and kind of heal about it. And then a lot of the problems I had in that time, I didn't know why. I didn't know what was causing it. So, but I just worked around the problem. You know, I mean, your life goes on. If you have PTSD, you still gotta, life goes on. You still have to feed yourself, put a roof over your head.
Right.
And so I did that for a long time. And when I finally got the memories back, I could look and go, that's why that happened. Oh, and then it was just easy to deal with the problem because I've already worked past it in like did a functioning work past it, where just had my life going. And if I would have got my memories back earlier, when I was 25 years old,
Mm.
it would have been a much more traumatic thing.
Right.
It would have been way more traumatic because I didn't have my life established yet. I was still kind of like
Almost 20 years
wandering
old.
through life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, it happened to me later in life. And so it's been a lot easier to deal with it. And talking about it, it's another thing. Like, they give you parting gifts on the way out. You're not, they don't let you, they hypnotize, industrial grade hypnotize you and program you to not speak about it, to not talk about it, and to not seek it out. And so that barrier goes away the more that you write about it, the more that you talk about it, and the more you seek it out. It's a muscle kind of thing, and that barrier can go away. So that was what I didn't plan on giving talks about it at all. I wanted help. I wanted to talk to a researcher, and I did an interview, and one led to another and another. And doing all those interviews kind of worked out that muscle of talking about it, and it does go away. The programming goes
Therapeutic, right? It's like therapeutic.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. I know you told me, well, one thing was to just find someone that's willing to listen, that you trust, and just talk about it. And I think a lot of people don't have anybody to talk to. So that's really important. We were talking a little bit about just dealing with trauma and addictions and the relation. And you mentioned that a lot of the MK people are used for drug running, which is true, which is unfortunately true. And a lot of people don't understand why. And the reason why, from my knowledge, is that the global drug trade is actually what pays for a lot of these programs. And from what I've heard and people that I've talked to, apparently the global drug trade is actually the biggest economy that there is, and it's way bigger than what's reported. It's actually in the multi-trillions. And so when people like to ask, oh, how do these corporations pay for this, or how is it that these countries have this money with all of this deficit and all of this these budgeting problems? Where does the money come from? Well, illegal drug trade. There's one thing that a lot of people, most everybody uses in America at some point, whether it's prescription or whether it's illegal, is drugs. So if people want to know how is it paid for, it's drugs. And some people might also know about the black budget, right? And but yeah, I think that answers a big question for a lot of people. So there needs to be a certain level of drug trade, drug trafficking that leads the profits back to these
into the programs. And what that is it's unaccountable money. It's
exactly.
money that's not accountable for,
not taxed.
Yeah, September 9/11, September 10th, Donald Rumsfeld came out and said they lost
$2 billion.
$2 trillion.
Right.
$2 trillion. We don't know what happened to it. And then coincidentally, the next day, the office got destroyed. That was going to, that's what that is. But so here's my take on that. Here's what I remember. So to remember my space service on Ceres Colony, we would go there. We would go to Diego Garcia in the middle of the night and pick up cargo and drop cargo off sometimes. But we picked up cargo whenever they needed anything like military issue. There were two American officers there that would have somebody in the cargo section, which I was a cargo engineer at the time, sign on as if there was a purchase, like a receipt for, whatever the shipping ticket. They would have to sign that. And one day he said, "You guys are running up a huge tab. You guys took that, you haven't made it," he believed that there was money changing hands, that the Ceres Colony Corporation was paying for the stuff that they were picking up. And because the guy that normally signed the paper wasn't there, they had me do it. And he told that to me. It was like not my job. So later on in the mission briefing the next morning, with the mission briefing, I raised my hand. I said, that guy said, there's a huge tab getting ran up. And I said that to the crew, the captain and the Corvette captain and the guys, the crew of the ship. And I said that to them. And they cried tears laughing.
Yep.
They broke into laughter for a long time. And what they told me was that there was no payment.
Yeah.
All the cargo we took out of there, it was that drug money, that black budget money just paid for it. Basically, the earth is producing goods for them to trade to ETs
Mm-hmm.
or wherever to use it, whatever it is.
Off-world colonies. Yeah.
Off-world colonies. That's right. They can take whatever they want, and it's free of charge because the world is actually paying for it
Right.
itself.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. And that's how I know about it a little bit because my people in my family were doing that. People think that it's only the CIA because I think that's public. Is that everybody knows about the CIA coke planes that crashed and Oliver North? That's a publicized story, but people think that, oh, that's just the CIA and cocaine, and then stops there. It doesn't, because unfortunately, some of these space programs are very like naval in origin and have to do with the Navy. And if you want to traffic drugs, you're going to use as many means as possible, and you need to afford these programs. So even the Navy, even the Navy would have to traffic drugs at some point. And I'm not putting anybody or blaming or anything like that. I'm not naming names or anything, but it's sad, but it's a reality of how things get funded because.
Well, to run a military, like, also in my program, I've been able to find funding for some of the programs I was in the beginning. Long story, I won't go into that, but what I'm saying is what that money allows them to do is not be accounted for, to not have a paper trail that leads to the program or the weapon or the new technology, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it gets support.
Right. Yeah. So one thing that really stuck out to me that you said, because I've listened to other interviews from you, and you said that besides the MRI machine, giving you a little bit, or maybe catalyzing um, a flood of memories for you. You said that in the actual, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said in the actual point where you were working in the space program and then they were going to transfer you back into civilian life, that during that process you became upset because you realized that you were done with your 20 years tour of duty, and that you realized that you could kind of be a little bit difficult and rebellious or upset at the fact because you wouldn't have been punished because they were already putting you back at that point. And then so you at that point you kind of were like, I guess it was on the way back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You became kind of mad, and then you said that when they told you they were going to compartmentalize your memories so that you wouldn't have a recall of it in your life, and they were looking at the chrono viewer, which is basically like a machine that shows your perceivable future for when they put you back, that you said that something to the effect of that you swore that I am going to remember this, and then you used the name of Jesus because you had said that prior to your abductions, that your mom had educated you on the name of Jesus, and that if you were ever in trouble to call for the name of Jesus, and that at that moment that you did that, the abduction team became distraught, and they were talking amongst themselves saying, oh, stop, he now he's going to remember, don't make him upset, he's going to remember this now. Do you see a connection between using the name of Jesus and being able to also remember what you're remembering now, so that maybe at that moment life events changed so that you would get an MRI? Like, for example, maybe your timeline kind of shifted to the point where, okay, now he's going to get an MRI, now he's going to speak to people, now he's going to be able to, kind of do what you're doing now. Do you think that there's a connection between that?
Yeah, well, so let me unwind that a little bit and give it a little bit different setup. So, yes, the short answer is yes. I wanted to remember, and I knew it was very important to remember at that age. When I was sitting there before the 20 years, before Time on Series, when I was just a little boy on the table, I felt like I was in a first contact situation. It was a very important thing. I knew it because standing in front of me were a bunch of extraterrestrials, non-humans, that were just as smart or smarter than me. So this was a big thing. They're at the return. So there you hit a couple times that happened differently. Excuse me. What happened was when they put you back the entire time. So on the flight back, another slave was cursing at the pilot and being rude. And I said, don't, you're going to get in trouble. He said, they have 1 day to get us back. What are they going to do? I'm not going to get in any trouble. He said, you can't get in trouble now. It's law. They got to put you back. There's only so much time. It's their law.
Law.
And so, yeah. And so they can't just like throw you in jail because you did something wrong when you're going back when you're on your return. When they're taking you back to go through the process to be regressed and put back into your life, they've got a certain amount of hours there that they can do that. And that's it. So you're not going to jail. You're not going to get punished. Nothing's going to happen to you. And I tested that out, and it was true. They did. In fact, they didn't even know what to do. He said, sit on the table. I said, no, you sit on the table. And he was like totally, and this is an ET, and he was like totally didn't know what to do. So they would say, after a while, they began asking me like, look, and they started to explain, like, if you move, you could hurt yourself later. We're going to do a procedure on you. And if you move around in it, if you resist us, it's going to hurt you. So please just try to stay still. Like they started being apologetic and during that time. So after that procedure, you go back. I ended up back in a room as my 10-year-old self with no memory of the 20 years that had just happened. No memory of Ceres, no memory of Mars, none of that. All those memories were erased. And I was getting ready to go back to my bedroom. They were good. It was like the final checkup. And what he had it's a chronovisor. And there was only one in the room that was qualified. Like he had to have a license to use it. So he was sitting across the room with the monitor turned sideways so that I couldn't see what was on it. Nobody else could look. And they started making fun of me. And they said, I said, I can't wait to go back. And remember, I went back. I was a 10-year-old boy at this time.
Right.
I said, I can't wait to go back and tell everybody about you. This is great for the world. People are going to be so happy that there's ETs, that there's aliens. People are going to be so happy about it. I can't wait. And they said, no, you're not going to remember. And then they said, do you remember where you just came from? And I said, no, you just got me from my bed. And they laughed. They were laughing at me. They, you know what I'm saying? Like they were like, see, you already forgot. And I was talking big junk before they put me back when I was an adult there. I was saying I was going to remember, and I was combative at saying, I was cursing at them, and I was talking up a big game. And then when I woke up, they said, do you remember anything? And I said, no. So then they laughed and said, see, he talked all that. So that's how that was. And then I said, and it made me mad to be laughed at.
Yeah.
And I got livid. And that's when I remembered my mom had just told me like a week before, she said, if you believe in Jesus and you believe enough, you can ask him for anything and he'll give it to you because he loves you. My mom was a pretty religious person. And she taught me that like the week before. So that was like the only card I had. And I was livid. I remember I must have been red in the face. And I said, in the name of Jesus, I'm going to remember. And the guy at the chronovisor across the room, immediately, he said, stop it. You guys stop. He said, you're all going to be in trouble for this. And I'm going to have to write up a report now because you've altered every one of his timelines. You know what I'm saying? He said, every single timeline has been altered. And it was all from that moment. So Jesus intervened, my anger, my faith. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't want to give people that. I don't want to direct people in that. I just want to say what happened,
right?
And everybody can make up their own mind,
right?
But from that point on, I always had they always every single timeline that they used their chronovisor tech had a version that I remembered, and I got my memories back.
Right. And I think that that's very profound. And I know that you don't want to make any wide, broad statements about that because that's a real deep issue. But like you said, you're just speaking from what happened to you and your experience. The reason why I find that profound is because from my own experience and my own research, what I've found, and you mentioned a word that you said was law. You said there was a law. And from what I've heard, the way I perceive things is that apparently other people have made similar statements in similar situations where they were either being taken or they were in the process of being harassed, or they were in the midst of something, and they used the name of Jesus in a similar fashion. And in some cases, they were just dropped. They were just like, oh, we got to drop them. And I've heard that this is also some type of law that if you align yourself, because you know from your experience, and we haven't gone into it in this particular interview, but if people watch your other interviews, there's a huge satanic aspect to these programs, unfortunately. And a lot of these corporations, that's hard to talk about, but they actually are Satanists, and they do satanic rituals. So one person, just logically, whether you're an atheist or whatever your belief in is, you'd have to wonder, first of all, if this is high technology, why are these people religious? It doesn't seem like the two of those things would be in the same boat. But I find that in the higher levels of knowledge in these programs, that it's actually one and the same, that people don't understand that there's a technology behind religion, and that religion is not just what they make it out to be. And so you'd have to infer that if these people are so intelligent and they're so rich and they're achieving these amazing feats, but they're also Satanists, there must be a logical reason why. So whatever that infers, you'd also have to make the opposite conclusion, that if Satanism appears to be working for them, perhaps on the other side of the spectrum, if you align yourself with maybe a positive belief or an opposite energy, whatever you want to call it, and specifically, like in your case, you said Jesus, that would somehow affect what they were doing. To me, it makes sense, because if they're Satanists, and what we're told, and if you use the name of Jesus, that might be true. That from what I've heard is that it's a law that if you I don't want to be too specific, but just in general, that if you kind of declare the name of Jesus, or stand or align yourself, I guess is a better way to put it, with that energy, or the way you did it, that there is an effect. There is actual power behind that name. I don't know if it's the name or the actual act, but apparently this goes way back to what he did, is when he sacrificed, he did that for the reason that, to me, that you would be able to do what you did. If he hadn't done that, I think what I've heard was that he did that, what he did, right? What they say he did is he sacrificed himself for all of us. And people wonder, well, how does that come into play? How is that practical? And I think your testimony is a practical example of here's a you know what I mean?
You've touched a huge subject that really I've never connected the dots like that, but I've had other people tell me the same thing. I don't want to I don't want to play some kind of trump card or whatever, right, say that these guys use it, but there are other things, like with this high technology, where invoking the name of Jesus, there are organizations that invoke the name of Jesus so they can overcome some of the tech. And here's what it is. What you said earlier is that religion, good and bad, is a technology. It basically is a technology. And what I remember of the Ceres colonies, our mandate was to trade goods for tech. They wanted technology, higher technology. There were still fantastic things to be discovered that they knew it's kind of like, ancient man knew that you could fly one day because they could see the birds fly.
Right.
Well, the Germans, the Ceres colony, knows that there are much higher technologies because they see them playing out in the cosmos. And what happens is, what's true is that you can use the satanic stuff and the slavery and kind of lie, cheat, and steal and get to a certain level of technology. Mm-hmm. But after that, there's a certain level of technology where you can't build. Right. There's a ceiling to mechanical technology where you can't build something more complicated. And the next level of tech, and what they know is that there are many civilizations that have much greater technology than that. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is it's all consciousness based.
Right.
It's based on higher consciousness, mm-hmm. and tapped into that. So they're using the Satanism, which are kind of like under that, but it's the same kind of version of technology. After a certain point, you have to be more of a service to others kind of consciousness, mm-hmm. where a Christ consciousness, they call it Christ consciousness, Yes. So that's kind of what's going on, is that we still live in that low tech reality. We're still in the dark ages, really, when you're talking about that. I've met very righteous people, and they're still not all that righteous.
Yes.
And I've met very bad people, and they're still not really that bad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not all the way there. We're not pure
Yeah.
at what we do yet, one way or the other. So that's why it goes so far. And what they've done is the elite have really hidden the science from the rest of us on how their religion works, where they get a payoff of it. And they've hidden great aspects of religion throughout history. They've been around for thousands of years. And so that's why they've got access to what's going on up there. And there are entire civilizations that are ran by the same kind of thought process, that the same kind of way. But all their technology, all their level of development can only go so high, like you said, to that ceiling, to a purely consciousness tech.
Right.
And once it gets there, they're going to bounce off it. And they're going to have to get right.
Yeah. Well, that's what Tesla said. He said that the invisible controls the visible. So there's a lot more to what we see, for sure. And I can testify to this as well. I haven't shared any of my stories as of yet, but I can personally say that I've also used the name of Jesus in a situation, and I do believe it did help me. And I came to that realization as well. So that's why when I heard you say it, that was extreme. And I've heard others say it too. It's not just, one or two incidences. I've heard it many times. And I've also, through my research and experience, from what I've perceived, is that a lot of these space programs have some type of religious aspect tied to them. Like, I've heard that a lot of these, I don't know what you want to call them. Super soldier is such a broad term. I don't want to box everybody into a super soldier category, because I know that people say, oh, super soldier, oh, did they pay you? And it's like, no, not really. So you kind of like more like a super slave in some of these situations. Or I don't even know if super is even a good word to use. That's kind of, I don't know. But as a layman's, like, because I hear it on the internet, people say super soldier, right? Somebody who's augmented or somebody who's engineered to be in these programs or indoctrinated. I've noticed that there's a huge religious aspect to it. Through my own family, my father's case, it was through the Catholic religion. And if people look into the Roman Catholics, they've got a lot of things going on, to do with, like you said, Satanism and technology and the space program. I've also heard almost every organized religion has an aspect. And I feel that a lot of these people that are going into space and into space programs are always doing it through some type of religious organization, where there's a indoctrination point, and there's they select people as well from certain organizations, certain churches. And I don't want to throw too many people or names out there, but yeah, that's definitely part of my involvement personally. And so with that being said, I wanted to just ask you, from your own perspective, and you don't have to go into it if you don't want, but what is your perception of Satan or Lucifer?
I think that so during my time I did witness, I was in First State. We didn't get into that really in my intro, but basically I was in Seattle, and I was owned by a billionaire there. He was a practicing Satanist, and I did witness some of the rituals, and actually describing those rituals to somebody that had been an former Satanist was one of the reasons I was researched, because it was actually, information that I shouldn't have known. And so it was basically validation to my account that I knew some of this. My feeling is that Satanism is nothing more than a tool to communicate with other intelligences that have a different nature. And so it's kind of like an occult. It's like channeling. What we do, there are people out there that channel. Everybody. It's like flavor of the week to channel a Pleiadian. You know what I mean? Like they all say that I'm channeling a Pleiadian or an Andromedan, as if that's the whole universe. And that's just not the case. I mean, it's a much bigger place. There's a lot more intelligence than just that. And the Pleiades is a big place with 200,000 stars and just as many different civilizations in there.
Absolutely.
Satanism is just the ability to communicate with lower consciousnesses like that.
Lower consciousness.
Lower.
Yes.
So the ones that are kind of not on that ceiling of not to that ceiling yet. Like
Yeah.
basically very, very powerful consciousness minds that are dead. And
Dead.
so,
Yeah.
and they feed off energies. They feed off when people that are on the other side of the veil feed off certain energies. So when somebody's tortured or killed or somebody has sex, there's energy that that's given off,
Right.
and they feed on that. They stick around. And that's how they can mark the area where they're at in time and space.
Yes.
So I think it's access to things like that. What they were doing was the satanic rituals were conjuring intelligences in a way that they could channel information from the past or the future events, and so that they could get ahead.
Yes.
So it's just a technology to learn about the future.
Just like a quantum computer.
Right. But it's what we can do. I mean, there's a lot of psychic people. I mean, most people have somebody in their family that does something pretty amazing or heard about somebody. So there's a real science behind it. And that's on my website as well. There's a few documents, CIA documents on there that really explain the science behind it. And there's a book that has a lot of the nuts and bolts of how psychic ability works.
Yeah.
But Satanism is probably just a religion to aggregate that kind of method up so that they can have an unfair advantage.
Right.
Over the rest of us. And they stomped it out. Really, religion stomped out all the ritual human sacrifice around the world. Everybody did it. Prior to 2000 in the BC, basically every major culture publicly that did commit ritual human sacrifice, and globally. So it wasn't. So I mean, it was a bigger thing than what any of the history books make it out to be. The Hawaiians did it. The American Indians did it. The Scottish, the English, all through those. Micronesia, all through everywhere, basically all over Asia, everybody committed ritual human sacrifice. So Christianity stamped that out. It was Christ who said, no, you're not going to do that anymore. They wanted to eat him. At the Last Supper, they said, Jesus, are we going to eat you? And he said, no, you're going to have my body, my blood is wine and my body's bread. You eat that in remembrance of me. You don't eat people anymore.
Yep.
And everywhere Christianity went after that, it stamped it out. So these people are still practicing it.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because there are certain religions that it's hard to talk about, but yeah, you said that cannibalism, right? And publicly stamping it out, and what that did, according to my perception, is it pushed those same practices to simply go underground and become secretive, so that they could continue what they were doing away from the public eye, which is kind of a part of the space program. Is they're doing these things away from the public eye because, like you said, the billionaire that you lived with in Seattle was a practicing Satanist, and it was through that channel that eventually led you into the space program. So yeah, I think that when people are just looking into one thing, they got to really be open to understanding, to look into many other aspects or pieces of the puzzle, like we talked about, the drug trade, the religious aspect, the technology aspect, because they all come into play, which is why people should understand why the secrecy over just UFOs is in place, because one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So by covering up UFOs, they're not just covering up their war machines or their aerial advantages. They're covering up a whole infrastructure of illegal activity and very, very dark things that would shock people. But
it's the entire control structure. Exactly.
Yes, yeah, right. So that's definitely an incentive to why they want to keep things secret, because it still goes on. It still goes on, and I know, well, from what I've perceived is that I don't want to talk too much more about it, but apparently this you said Christ consciousness. Apparently this satanic consciousness is a lower form of it's an electromagnetic field consciousness that can manifest through, you can access it, like you said, through sacrifices and sigil magic, which is drawing geometric shapes in places in time at certain points on the earth, on the energy grid, the electromagnetic field of the earth, and with the alignment of the constellations. You can access that through doing sacrifices, kind of low-tech way. And what this electromagnetic consciousness satanic can also do is come through electronics. So, which is when they make, like, I'm not going to go too much into it, but apparently when they use supercomputers or quantum computers, they're also, it's almost like a Ouija board in a way, where these quantum computers are talking to all other computers in the quantum universe at all times. So they're channeling through, instead of just doing it through like a child or a psychic or a sacrifice, they're doing it through a computer screen in some cases. So I think people should be aware of that, you know, because it's not. I think if someone takes anything away from this, I don't want people to think it's not a joke. It's not fiction. It's used in fiction, but it's not just like hocus pocus type of thing. I think people should be consciously aware of what they're looking at and what they're using, because they say that the greatest trick the devil pulled is to convince everybody he doesn't exist, right? And I think that's where the power lies in it. So thank you for stating all of that. You know, that's really important. And I mentioned super soldiers. My next question would be, from your perspective, and I know super soldier is not even a good term, because there's so many categories of transhumans and soldiers and augmented, you know, whatever you want to call them, metahumans and all that, clones. But what is your perception of that super soldier? Dangerous or not? Or where do you see it?
You mean the individual or just the subject?
The subject. Like do you think it's okay to, you know, augment people? I mean, how do you feel about the transhuman thing?
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If everything, I don't know how to put it simply, but basically, if they could put a chip in your head that you could understand every language in the world, everywhere you went, would you buy that? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but a lot of people would.
Well, you're aware of it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there are going to be levels of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, where does it end? But if they put a chip in your head where all you had to do was think for your phone to call somebody and you could call them in your head, and they could speak another language and you could understand it fluently. How about if they put a chip in your head and now you can talk to your dog?
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, now you can understand your dog, you can understand what he's saying.
Right.
Like that, it's that kind of advance that we're going to get from that. So it's coming. It's coming. People aren't going to be as afraid of it as you and I, because they're going to put, you know, because because salespeople are so talented at what they do. Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of advancement it's coming. It's like,
it's here in some ways.
I don't want to sell it to you. I don't want to say that the transhuman thing is great, but it's kind of where we need to go. You know what I mean? Like it's like we're not going to evolve that much faster. It's like we're gonna put machines in us that do things.
Some people will, yeah.
And so there's going to have to be a level that it ends. You know, that there has to be a level of the super soldier thing. The ones that I had exposed to that we shipped back and forth weren't even human. They were more like a bio robot than a human being. And I think it would stay like that. I don't think people are well suited for that task, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think they can do better with engineering a completely different life form and then making it like almost like a robot. Yeah. That's where that ends up. But we are surefire going to get technologies we're going to get the brain implant, and it's going to be, people without it are going to get left behind. Like, you know, just how safe it is versus an AI coming and taking everybody over is going to be a different story. Like, you're going to have to rely on some talent for people to do that. But it's just that it's one of those, it's like the smartphone. Like I really tried not to get a smartphone.
Yeah.
For a long time. I had the old phone, the old flip up phone for a long time before, because I know what they do, because I know that they watch everything you do. But really, but nowadays you kind of have to have it. You have to have one because everybody else does too. That's what you're talking
in society. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would personally, just for my own opinion, and it's just my opinion, I would caution against the reason why I wouldn't put, and I'm just speaking on my soapbox just for a second, is that the reason why I wouldn't put or I wouldn't willingly want to put something in my brain or in my body that had an electromagnetic field antenna or connection was because, like I stated earlier, if this satanic force can act through electronics, I think that would even enable it to enter your body more easily. And so that's what I would be cautious of, which is why I think people should be aware of the Satanism involved, because that could be like a Trojan horse type of thing where they would sell something to you with the benefits and not letting you know that this could also give you the ability to understand languages, but it could also give them the ability to understand everything that's going on in your head simultaneously, or edit your thoughts. You know, 1 minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I
So
feel.
they're going to have access to your thoughts. You think it's bad enough now by talking around your phone, and then all of a sudden you see, I want to buy a new tent, and then all of a sudden in your Facebook feed there's a bunch of tent ads.
Yeah.
You think that's bad? How about if you even think about anything
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like, I think the girl at work is kind of hot, and now you've got marriage counseling ads everywhere. You get what I mean? Like, it's a slippery slope. We at some point are going to have to decide on where the individual's rights go. And I'll tell you the other thing, when you're talking about that, well, individual rights, that means that the Constitution of the United States would have to go.
And I
That
see
means
that
it would have to go.
is actively that's a thing that's being actively pursued by some people. It seems like
greatly under attack by a shadowy force, by a shadowy organization. That the Constitution has been under attack for a great amount of time, and they've gotten away with it in other countries. It's tragic what's happening in Australia right now. The human rights are just because of COVID.
I've seen that. That's true. Yeah.
So I think it's the same. I think it's the same fight. You get what I mean? Like, it's the same about freedom, because they want to take your rights.
Yeah. Well, having conversations like this, I hope whoever watches it, it helps them be more aware of it, because I don't think people see what's coming. And I think if they do, it's like when people stand in line for the new iPhone. There's a lot of people, and it's a choice. And it even says that biblically. It says it'll be a choice because we have free will. That's one of the laws, right? So, yeah. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just wanted to ask you some positive things. So you said you have a website, and you have a lot of this information to help open up these doors a little bit. So
yes,
like memory recall and coping with memories.
So what happened was, after my first few interviews, I mean, that was 5 years ago, and so now down the trail, it's like I've had hundreds and hundreds of people just contact me, and they're like, I remember these things. What can I do to make it? What can I do? And it's kind of a long spiel to do that. To give everybody 2 hours on a Saturday, to give a dozen people 2 hours. I can't do it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And what had happened was, I started people wanted to pay me, and there were people that said, look, I'll pay you. Just, can I talk to you for a while? And I want to tell you what I think, and you tell me. And I'm like, okay, but I just can't do it all. I can't keep up with it, everybody. I can't.
Yeah.
So I sat down with a friend of mine, Jackie Pierce, and she's done courses online. Like, she offers courses on psychic, all kinds of things. And so that's what she does professionally. And she said, just make a course. And I did that, and it's linked off my website. It's $40. And it's a good place to help to start. If you feel like you've been involved, you have a hunch you've been involved with these programs, this is something that'll help give you a kind of a beginning to work on, and give you some homework to do, and make you feel like you're not alone. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I would have loved to have something like this. So I put that out there. We've had positive feedback. People have been doing it, and it's only been live a week now. And and then we've created a Patreon channel because of the censorship. A lot of the SSP tags and secret space program tags have been shadow banned on YouTube, off Twitter. And so a lot of people are getting deleted nowadays. So in order to preserve that, I've started a Patreon channel, and it's weekly events, current events, with a spin of what I remember, my perspective, having gone through what I've gone through. So, and that's doing well. People are coming on there, and it's really starting to blossom. I've got some good guests coming on, and I'm really happy about that. So the website is TonyRodrigues.com, Tony, RODRIGUES.com. And it's up and running. So check it out. And there's other resources, and there are links to all my free content as well. 70 or 80 free interviews that I've done, the Dr. Salas series. So that's all linked on my website as well. So there's a great deal of information on the subject for somebody that even doesn't know anything about it, and kind of a brief write-up of what happened to me. So it's a great place to start. And it really got a lot of load off my shoulders, because I got to the point where, you know, I was just felt like I was getting people pissed off at me because I just couldn't keep up with it all. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, and
Yeah.
here I am still doing this.
Thank you so
I've been
much
out here
for this
filming all
today,
day.
right now. Yeah, I know you're
Yeah.
so busy. I know. So I really appreciate
So,
it.
but I believe in this. You know, I want to say that, you know, I've given a lot of time and effort to it for free. Now that Jackie is the one that really kind of twisted my arm into monetizing, which I believe too, because I'm going to do good things with that money that's going to sit aside and pay for the website, pay for this course. But
Right.
there are some, I'd like to get a conference together. I'd like to be able to pay for people to meet each other.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people involved. There's a lot going on. And
Yes.
in the next 5 or 6 years, the world is going to change greatly.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I believe in what I'm doing with talking with people. I know that I remember what it was like for me, that I needed some help back then, and so I'd like to be there and be that, you know what I mean, somewhere that I didn't, something that I didn't have available to me at the time, because it was terrifying in the beginning.
Yes. Hearing you speak and watching your videos and your testimony has definitely helped me personally. For anybody that knows who I am, if you're watching this
Thank you.
now, Tony has helped me just talking to him and watching him. And I definitely will put all of your links in all of the descriptions and on this video when it's uploaded. And I wanted to just close out with how you feel in general. Like, a lot of these people that were in these programs, that were in control of these programs, that did these things to you, I would like to know, for some people there may be lots of animosity or angst or frustrations, and um, in your perspective, how do you feel about what has happened to you through the people that has done this to you? Like, how do you feel about it?
In the beginning, I was very angry. While it was happening is when I had the anger. During those years, and even when I came back in my early 20s, my teens and 20s, I was very angry. You know what I mean? I didn't know why. I'm kind of beyond that now, and you know, I feel that people that take advantage of other people are really just shooting themselves in the foot. I think that we learned long ago that slavery is self-defeating, and there's a certain point wherein, you know, you're just hurting somebody else is just hurting yourself. I feel like you should just let it go. So they're getting the short-term benefits now, but it's going to have long-term consequence by the way that they've played out the programs, and ETs as well. And so there's going to be a time of reckoning, but I think we should just need to move past it all. And it's going to be time for everybody to be aware of what nature really is.
Is
And it's,
forgiveness a good word?
yeah, I mean, I don't feel that I've forgiven. I just kind of feel like I've moved on. You know what I mean? You don't forgive the wave that knocks you over in the surf. You just keep going. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're going for a swim and then a wave catches you in the face, you don't have to give it forgiveness, because it did what it, you know, it didn't do anything wrong. It just, I don't, I like to get away from good and evil, looking at things good and evil. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like does the mouse have to forgive the cat? The cat eats mice.
Right.
You,
Right.
you, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like I was caught up in a program in a system.
Yeah.
So I don't forgive the system. I don't have to. It's a system.
Part of
It needs to
reality.
be changed later. The system needs to grow to where it stops doing things like that again. You know, and it will.
That's a lot of wisdom. I think that's important for people, because I see a lot of people that are shocked, angry, and they respond with. I hear so many angry statements, which is understandable. And some of the people I talk to are just, yeah, very, very upset about it. And I think that doing a work on yourself and process of therapy and seeking out people to talk to and looking at your information on your website and reaching out to others and teaming up, we have each other, and you know, looking for camaraderie and information, and then also working on yourself with whatever it takes, treating yourself right, talking nicely to yourself, improving your own relationships, eating right, exercising, whatever it takes, you know, even prayer. Yeah, I think those are all important things to do if people definitely want to recover um, from these types of things, or do any type of healing or understanding, because it's so easy to just look at it and have a knee-jerk or emotional reaction that's negative, and then just abandon it and leave it at that.
Anger is perfectly natural,
Yeah.
but anger really is grief
Yes.
for losing something. Yeah, you know what I mean? Anger is really just grief. So when you meet people like that are angry, they're still grieving.
Right.
Like I kind of let the grieving go long ago. I kind of when my life, when you know what I mean, like when I let go of the baggage and kind of went on with my life, then the anger and all that went with it. So you know what I mean. Don't. I'm not selling. I would never tell anybody don't be angry for people that wronged you. I would never ever say that. Suggest that in a million years. Say you need to forgive and forget because that's bullshit too. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be angry and you need to express and do what things are in a healthy way that are not going to put you in jail.
Yeah.
You need to process it with your anger, put it to constructive use, and then grieve,
Mm-hmm.
and then move on in a healthy way. You know what I mean? Like I recommend that for everything like that because that's really the process. Anger, you can't tell somebody to not be angry.
Yeah.
It's just as bad. That's another crime. That's
Right.
a whole nother crime.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? I would tell angry people to stay angry, do your thing, and process this.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But just be aware that the anger will go.
It's
The
a,
anger will one day pass, and then you'll see things more clearly, and that's when you're going to get your best action against what happened.
right.
You get what I mean? Like an angry action is not necessarily the best one.
Yeah. And that's important coming from you, and I appreciate you saying that because I agree, and I know that that's important step in psychology is too. That's just one of them, right? Is like anger, denial, and there's a whole step to it before you get to acceptance is the final
Mhm.
step. And what I see now across the world, no matter what is going on, if people see things in the news and the issues that are topical now, I see lots of anger, but I don't see as much work through it to pass that. And I think that that's important about as far as healing goes, is if we want to get to that point, we got to kind of work through it. And you specifically, the reason why I want people to know that these words are powerful coming from you is because if you guys please, and I encourage you guys to go to his website and look up his other interviews, not just based on what he said today, but if you listen to Tony's story, Tony has gone through so much um, trauma and amazing shock of experiences and incredible things that would never happen to the average person. And Tony actually was, um, to lack of a better term, a modern day slave. You were literally right classified as a slave. And I see in the world today, especially in America, this is still a hot topic for certain racial groups where you see racial violence and they it's like you know, stemming from racial injustice and slavery issues. So one last thing that I would like to ask you is for somebody that was literally a slave, right? And you even had to wear a collar, a slave collar, a bomb collar, right?
Mhm.
Um, Having been through that and to where you are now speaking, what would be your advice, just your general advice for anybody that has experienced some type of or form of slavery in their life coming from you?
Wow, that's a huge thing. So during the time during the time that it happened was there was a great deal of despair, and you know I still crave more freedom today. Like as far as I've come in my own life, I still crave, you know what I mean, to not do the 9 to 5. I wish I could travel and come and go as I pleased about everything. Like all that did was kind of stoke that fire of it. And so freedom is really super valuable to us. And a lot of people have nice things, big expensive homes and cars and everything. And they think they're free and they're not. Freedom is priceless. And so that I guess that's what I don't know what to say to anybody else in that situation. You know what I mean? You have to develop your own sort of freedom when during that time I had to develop in my mind my own way of experiencing freedom. And so and I don't know what to say to anybody else about it, to be honest with you. Just out of my own experience, you know, I'm glad it's over. I know that I couldn't have done anything really differently at the time, and but it made me appreciate freedom. The being denied things, you know, being made to feel shame makes me understand shame, and being denied of freedom makes me understand what real freedom is. You know, even if it's only for a few minutes. And so, you know, I don't know. I don't have any quick words to give anybody that's going to make anything better. Just that, you know, it was a long time. You know, it was a short amount of imprisonment is a very long time.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm very appreciative of you saying that and you speaking to me today. And I think it's very profound and important. And I hope I didn't ask anything too personal or difficult. But
No problem at all.
yeah, it's very valuable, and I hope and I know that this will help people. Hearing people hearing people hearing this will feel some type of hope. I think I feel confident about that, and I like to think that, from my personal experience, is that slavery is a huge problem, and it's bigger than anybody ever thought it was, confined to one single race or nation or creed, and it's a huge problem, and I'd like to see it end one day. And I do believe that there will be balance and restitution and retribution, but it is a process, and it does create a lot of emotions, sympathy, anger, understanding. But you, Tony, I commend you, because when I look at you and I listen to you, I see an individual. I see a man who smiles. I see a man who laughs. I see a man who's humble. I see a man who's capable and competent, well put together, and well spoken and very wise. And I think that you're a good role model and a good person to talk to. And I wouldn't be speaking with you if I didn't feel that personally. I believe that no one's free till we're all free. And I think testimony like yours will help us become all eventually. I feel like historically, everybody, once we all get free, well, yeah, we'll be there. We'll be in a happy place, one by one. So with that being said, Tony, I don't want to take up too much more of your time for the rest of the day. I really appreciate you talking to me here on Saturday, and yeah, it's been great.
Great, thanks. Thanks. It's good to be here, and I hope anybody has any questions, you can find me. There's also a contact link on the website where you can get a hold of me, and it'll shoot an email and give me a while to get back to it, but I like to stay on top of it. So anybody with questions, I love hearing questions. And thanks, man. It's been great to be here.
Aloha.
Aloha.